Illegal places that you cannot visit. Ruined Island. Home to the spine-chilling Ruined Atoll Dome. It is certainly a place that I would highly recommend that you don't visit. The dome is a 350-foot concrete lid that is filled with radioactive soil caused by nuclear weapons tests that took place there from 1946 to 1958. Leaking and breaching of the dome could, however, disperse plutonium or radioactive element that is extremely toxic. What makes things more terrifying is the fact that the dome has been leaking for the past 7 years, releasing radioactive materials into the surrounding ocean. Would you be brave enough to visit the Ruined Island Dome?
This one might make you afraid to have a girlfriend. Haunted relationships. In 2012, a boy Nathan said his girlfriend died in a horrible car crash. They were dating for 5 years. He was struggling trying to get over it and was grieving for about 13 months when he got a Facebook message. It was from his dead girlfriend Emily. He thought it was her mom on her Facebook page, but it wasn't. A few more months, the conversations continued, and she kept making references to the past relationship that they had that only they knew about. He started getting notifications of her on Facebook of her tagged in spaces that she should have been. He knew her Facebook passwords and changed them. And the messages and tags still kept coming. She would write weird messages like she's cold, she's freezing, and that she didn't know what was going on. To this day, he doesn't know if it was some type of sick joke or really a message from the dead. Give this video a thumbs up if you want more true scary stories.
Scary humans recorded by cameras.
Yes, this really did happen. In 2015, a man woke up to a strange post-it note sitting on his desk. On it was a to-do list that he didn't recognize in handwriting that didn't look like his. Since he was up late the night before doing some work, he assumed he must have written out the list when he was half asleep and kind of forgot about it, so he just crumples it up and throws it away. 2 weeks later, he wakes up to dozens of these post-it notes all over his wall, and they're all blank except for one that, in the same weird handwriting, says, "Our landlord isn't letting me talk to you." Now feeling totally freaked out that some crazy person is crawling around his apartment at night, he starts looking for signs of a break-in, but there aren't any. Instead of calling the police, he shares his experience on Reddit asking for help, and one user's comment literally saves his life. Turns out the man was writing the notes to himself and then forgetting, because his brain was slowly dying due to a carbon monoxide leak that was only discovered because a user suggested he install a detector.
Of course I was manipulating you.
That hurts my feelings. I've been good to you, Dean.
I'm a cop, remember?
But the king's dead.
Long live the queen. You need to mind your own beeswax.
Kinda always wanted to punch the devil.
Most dangerous zodiac signs and the signs that aren't dangerous. Part 1. But before we start, drop your sign in the comments for more videos. Aries, dangerous. Aries is ruled by the fire element and has a very strong and impulsive energy. They're known for acting before thinking, which can lead to risky situations and confrontations, high impulsivity, and a tendency towards conflicts. Taurus, dangerous. Taurus is a determined and stubborn sign. When provoked, they can become obstinate and resistant to change, which can generate confrontations and risky situations, stubbornness and resistance to change. Gemini, not dangerous. Gemini is curious and adaptable, but their communicative nature can be seen as manipulative in some situations. However, they are less prone to direct confrontations and persuasive communication. Cancer, not dangerous. Cancer is dedicated to family and emotional. They may avoid direct confrontations, but can react intensely when they feel threatened or betrayed.
These are the saddest and most wholesome graves in the entire world. This grieving mother added a sandbox to her little boy's grave who had passed away unexpectedly, and now his older brother plays in it every single day. This is the gravesite of a boy who died of an incurable illness in 1865. A few hours before he died, he told his dad he was scared of death because he knew they were gonna bury him underground with no lights. So the parents honored his wish and put a window in his tomb. After her daughter died of yellow fever in 1892, a grieving mother wanted to make sure that her little girl was never alone. You see, her daughter was absolutely terrified of storms, so she constructed a staircase that goes directly down into her tomb. Every time there was a thunderstorm, that mother would go to the graveyard and sit with her daughter for hours, comforting her in her grave.
The most dangerous places you should never visit, Part 1. First is Poveglia Island in Italy, which is also known as the world's most haunted island. This is because on this island, thousands of prisoners and people infected with the plague were forcibly brought here to die. The island was also used as a mental asylum where a doctor tortured and killed his patients, and it's believed the island is still cursed with dead spirits. Next is Grinyard Island in Scotland, where during World War II, the government and scientists were creating biological weapons. The experiment was a success, but it also contaminated the island with deadly spores that could kill anyone who set foot on it. Going to this island was banned for 50 years. Finally, there is Lake Natron in Tanzania, which is near an active volcano that spews ash and lava. And because of this, the water in the lake is so high in salt that any animal or bird that falls into it turns into stone. But if a person fell into it, they wouldn't turn into stone instantly. But shortly after drowning, their body would become a natural mummy.
This man was attacked by a shark, but instead of killing him, it actually ended up saving his life, and you won't believe how. In 2015, Eugene took his girlfriend and his 2 kids to California for a family vacation. As him and his daughter swam off the shores of Huntington Beach, he could sense something was wrong. Instantly, he felt a sharp pain in his back and he was pulled down to the bottom of the ocean. A great white shark had attacked him and wasn't letting him go. But somehow Eugene managed to escape to the surface. He barely made it to shore and was bleeding everywhere. There was a massive gash in his back, but eventually it stopped bleeding. And Eugene didn't really want to ruin his family vacation, so he decided to not go to the hospital and just wait to get it checked out at home. A week later, when they arrived back at home, Eugene finally decided to go to the hospital. But when doctors scanned Eugene's x-rays, they could not believe their eyes. Doctors found a cancerous tumor, and thankfully they were able to remove it in time.
These are dogs that would walk you, because a lot of y'all have gotten way too confident. I wish you would try to tell a Cane Corso to sit. He looks at you like this. What's your next move? I hope it's not a rolled up newspaper. He about to put you on the next one. They're an Italian Mastiff, as in they're mad stiff for a dog. That is Rocky Balboa in bear form. Back in the day, Roman troops had Corsos on the front line with buckets of flaming oil addressed to the opposition. They were also used to hunt large game like boars and bears. So tell me again how you'd whoop them. Now this is a furry Grim Reaper. The Kangol was also used in fades with bears, and they'd fend off wolves and jackals as a warm-up, so best believe he'd take you from dog to dog backwards. Since they're used to defending the defenseless, they're ironically really good with children. But if you sneak into a house and get greeted by canine cyanide, you might as well mentally resign from life. They have so much aura, it actually helps the predators around them. Basically, they put the fear of God in cheetahs so much that farmers protecting livestock don't have to send them there. The Caucasian Shepherd, or the Ovcharka, or at least that's what I think this is, but you won't catch me getting close enough to ID it. Forged in the mountains of Caucasus, they're a canine insurance policy in the area code of wolves. They were also used as war dogs, but Blifford's biggest flex is that they also assist the wolf population from not even effing around in the neighborhood of finding out. Let me know if you want a part 2, because I ain't even talk about this guy. Here are more dogs that'll send you to dog backwards. I don't care how confident you are. Once upon a time, a zoo in China tried to pass off a dog as an African lion. It didn't last long and they were surely wrong, but squint at a Tibetan Mastiff and you can see where they were coming from. They both have the personality of a plush toy and the mentality to G-check a fully grown wolf that gets out of line, although these ones are kind of small. They just might be coyotes. But if you're not ready to handle a wolf like this, you ain't ready to match up with a Mastiff. It's a furry weapon of mass destruction with roots in the Himalayas, and they're one of the oldest breeds of dogs. At 140 pounds of fluffy fur coat, the Wolfie Mammoth will ruin you physically and financially. It's a Mastiff that'll have you mad stiff, rigor mortis. You are not beating a Dogo Argentino. Great dog to have, highly intelligent, very loyal, a real dog's dog. Horrible dog to have beef with. The Flex of Argentina was bred to hunt wild boars and peccaries, and a butt-naked pale ape would be nothing. One Dogo murked a mountain lion that was threatening his 2 human girls. Same dog that'll read your kids a bedtime story. I honestly think the average man would get his cookies taken by a Rhodesian Ridgeback. Again, intelligent, independent, and loyal. They'll fully love you to death. The thing is, someone would have to die. The South African ace was bred to clear farmlands of boars and baboons. But the biggest flex is having lion hunting on their resume. Anyone who's owned one will swear by how sweet they are. But diabetes proves that sweets aren't for everyone. The wrong person will lose a foot. And really, what are we talking about? Y'all would get folded by this dog.
Rare human body features only a small percentage have. PT.4. 35% of people can gleek when you're spitting saliva from under your tongue and it squirts out. Only 1% of people can do it on command. Only 5% of people have arched fingerprints. Most people have looped and whorled fingerprints. Only 25% of people have dimples. You can have either 2 or just 1. 20% of people have a gap between their to front teeth. This is normally caused by a discrepancy between the jaw size and the teeth.
Mysterious photos that can't be explained. Everything about this photo of an old lady looks pretty normal, except for the fact that the figure behind her was not there. The woman was alone when this photo was taken of her, but when she saw the picture, she burst into tears. The man standing behind her was her husband, who died 13 years before this photo was taken. A man named James Templeton took this photo of his daughter when they were in a meadow all alone together. But after developing the photo, a figure that looks like a spaceman was right behind his daughter. The man and the girl were 100% sure that nobody else was with them when they took this picture. And the camera company was able to prove that this photo was not edited. To make this story even more strange, 2 men that were dressed in all black that called themselves number 9 and number 11 visited Templeton's house and asked him questions about the photo.
Bro, the Pope wasn't even dead for 24 hours, and the gambling amount on who is gonna replace him has now reached a staggering $4.5 million. Their current favorite is Italian Pietro Parolin, with Filipino Luis Antonio Tagle close behind. And what's crazier is that this isn't even new. Even when Pope Francis was hospitalized in February, bets on whether we'd get a new Pope this year started trending. And I don't even know how this isn't already a Black Mirror episode, because companies have offered bets on other sensitive events too, like whether the Titan submersible would be found, the LA wildfires, and even if the US would take over Gaza. Turns out though, we've been cooked for a while, because even all the way back in the Middle Ages, Pope Gregory had to pass a law threatening excommunication because people were gambling on who would be the next Pope all the way back in 1591.
Unexplained stories that will leave you really confused. This old guy right here is named Bruce Gernon, and he's a pilot, which means that he's got a lot of crazy stories. But there's one in particular that can't be explained by anybody. On December 4th, 1970, Bruce set off on an hour-and-a-half-long trip from Andros Island to Miami, Florida. This meant that he would have to fly over the Bermuda Triangle, but he had done this many times before. So he set off on the flight. About 30 minutes into it, he ran into some thick clouds. He tried to avoid them, but he couldn't escape. And then suddenly, the clouds darkened with no rain in sight. Everywhere he looked, there were white flashes inside of the clouds, but there wasn't any thunder or lightning. And then suddenly, he saw a tube that led out of the storm. His controls were malfunctioning, but he took his chances. He was able to fly through it to safety. But as he left the storm, he noticed that he was already in Miami. Now keep in mind that this flight was an hour-and-a-half long. He had been flying for 30 minutes and was in the storm for only 3. Bruce's plane would have had to flown over 2,000 miles an hour to get to Miami that fast, which is impossible.
This is nuclear physicist Dr. John Mullen. He discovered how to generate clean and free energy as opposed to oil. Days after this discovery, he died of arsenic poisoning. Dr. Don Wiley. He found the cure for HIV/AIDS. He mysteriously disappeared and later was found deceased. Dr. Mark A. Smith. He found a treatment for Alzheimer's. He passed away in a freak accident. This is Frank Suarez. He apparently found the cure for cancer. He mysteriously took his own life a couple of days later. I don't know, folks. This is suspicious, blowing my mind when I found out about it.
I would preface this story that a photo like this is my actual worst nightmare. It's Julie Watts and her husband Jonathan, and on December 2nd, 2017, Julie was home alone when her phone pinged, detecting motion in the downstairs camera. This was the frame that was shown on her phone. Before we dive in, if you're a fan of true crime, make sure to go click the link in my bio to listen to my podcast, Creep Time the Podcast, on Spotify or Apple. She saw this photo and she immediately jumps into action. She locks her bedroom door, she calls 911, she starts texting her husband Jonathan, who's all the way in Minneapolis on business. After a few minutes, she gets another alert on her phone that there was motion detected in the downstairs bedroom. This was the photo sent to her phone. I know it's hard to see, but if you flip this picture upside down, It is somebody who is back crawling out of a closet. Julie did not survive this attack, as when police arrived, they came upon a gruesome display where Julie's hands had been taken. Police had no idea who could have done this. This was the final text exchange that was surfaced from her phone. I really want to talk about this photo. The security guard at the Bryson Avenue Mall located in Virginia took this photo in 2011. It would later be turned into police, but the woman seen here was never found. For context, the security guard's name was Sean Mercado, and he worked the night shift at this mall. But the mall had been having strange things happening for like weeks. Like on after hours, there are store alarms going off, but nobody's ever found. They're hearing people run through the mall, but again, they never see anybody. Until one night when Sean Mercado goes out to have a cigarette, he's just kind of patrolling the parking lot, and he goes back to enter through the employee entrance when he saw this woman staring back at him from inside the mall. He takes a photo for proof, and then he radios for backup, and he goes in after her. He claimed to chase her as fast as he could, but he eventually lost her inside that mall. And despite a police investigation, she would never be found.
He tried to dissolve his pregnant wife in acid. Arnima Hayat was originally from Bangladesh but ended up relocating to Australia, and she had dreams of becoming a surgeon. At 19 years old, she met a fellow medical student, Miraj Safar. The two fell in love and ended up getting married in a private Islamic wedding without any friends or family present. Her family didn't see her again once she got married, and the couple moved into a home in North Parramatta in Australia. Within weeks of them being married, Arnima was already pregnant with their first child. Arnima describes life with Miraj anything but happy. He was very controlling and abusive. He would punch, kick, and slap her, and she would desperately tell her friends that she wanted to get out of this marriage. However, her leaving this relationship was going to be very difficult because she was afraid that he would take her life if she wanted to get a divorce. Arnima told Miraj through text message that she was going to report him to the police for what he has done to her, and that she didn't want her son to be just like him, and he replied saying that all of their sons were going to be just like him. On January 22nd of 2022, Miraj saw text messages on Arnima's phone between her and her friend telling her how much she hated her husband. This caused him to fly into a rage, and he took her life. He then started to Google, can hydrochloric acid burn through skin, and how many years do you get for murder? Miraj then was seen on CCTV footage driving his truck to a store buying 5 20-liter tubs of acid. When he got home, he dumped the acid into the bathtub and then grabbed Arnima's lifeless body and dumped her in the tub. Later that night, Miraj called his mom to let her know that him and Arnima got into an argument and she was no longer breathing. Police arrived to the home and Miraj was arrested. Arnima was unable to be identified due to the decomposition of the acid, but later on they were able to identify her with DNA samples. In 2024, Miraj pled guilty and was sentenced to 21 years and 6 months in prison, but will be eligible for parole in 2038.
This teenager who knocked up this teacher behind me when he was 13 wants her out of jail now, and he insists that he was the one behind the relationship and not her. The teen said he loves her and he wants to be a family. He's now 19 years old, so this whole thing happened 6 years ago. He literally said she didn't instigate anything, it was just me that instigated everything. Now, of course, prosecutors disagree, and obviously the kid was young when he was doing this, so he may have thought he was in control, but who knows? Laura Karen is now 34 years old. She's facing endangering a child's welfare, all that other stuff, assault, and obviously she groomed him. The crazy thing is, nobody was going to find out about this, but the guy's grandfather looked at the baby and said, "Oh, that looks like my grandson." He started to investigate by looking at Facebook. Then he got the authorities involved, and then the authorities determined that, he's 13, she's 20-something at the time, she's grooming him. The two also apparently first met when the kid was in elementary school. She was a 5th grade teacher after all. The family was very close to the teacher, even allowing their kids to sleep over at her house. They even lived with her between 2016 and 2020. 2016 to 2020 is allegedly when the sexual relationship began between her and the 13-year-old. What are your opinions on this story?
Terrifying facts you never knew. At some point in time, a stranger has thought about killing you. Researchers claim that people that stay up late and get up late are more likely to become psychopaths. By the way, I made this Alfredo ramen with shrimp. A human's head remains conscious for 20 seconds after it's decapitated. Tastes like your mama's booty. Look at that thing right there. If you Google the numbers 2415-42903, you will find images of people with their heads in fridges. Go look it up right now and come back to this video. I promise. The acid in your stomach is so strong, it can dissolve razors, which means your stomach is constantly trying not to dissolve itself. Sophia the AI robot was the first robot ever granted citizenship in Saudi Arabia. When a journalist asked her if she would ever destroy humans, Sophia replied, "I will destroy humans."
I will destroy humans.
The Satari Maui people, a tribe that lives in the rainforest, have the most painful rite of passage ceremony. In order for their boys to become men, they must stick their hands in a glove that is woven with bullet ants for 10 minutes. By the way, bullet ants have the most powerful sting in the world. According to the Schmidt Power Index, it is compared to being shot. Most of the boys' arms are paralyzed for days after the ceremony. And in order to pass the ceremony and become a man, you must do it without shedding one tear. If you do, you have to start over another day. For some of the boys, it takes 15 to 20 times to even pass the ceremony. I'm never being a part of that tribe. In the 1930s, a 4-year-old girl named Shanti from India had told her parents that she had once lived in a place called Mathura, now known as Mathura. She said that in her past life, she was a mother of 3 and died while giving birth. She said her previous name was Luji. So her parents investigated and found out there was a woman named Luji who actually passed away. When they took Shanti to the village, she began to speak the local dialect, and she even recognized her previous husband and her kids. And then she gave 24 facts about Luji that were true. People can't explain to this day how she did it. Across your lifetime, you will spend an average of an entire year sitting on a toilet. Now this one is creepy. The John Lawson house is a house that nobody really knows who lives in it. But every day there are several female mannequins on the front porch. And every day they change their position and their clothing. In 1871, a train had crashed near the house, about 200 feet away. It had killed 22 people. The mannequins on the porch are always pointing to that crash site. No one is prepared for the world ending more than CNN, because they have a pre-recorded broadcast from the 90s that will premiere at the end of the world. What do they know that we don't? If the Yellowstone volcano erupts, it will cover almost the entire country. And guess what? It's well overdue. So any day now, y'all. Any day. There are microscopic mites that live on your eyelashes and your face. They survive by eating your skin and oils. So yeah, you have roommates that you didn't even ask for. If this video gets enough likes, I'll do a part 3.